Hey everybody, welcome to CAF's Heroes of Sport. My name is Bob Babbitt, co-founder of the Challenged Athletes Foundation, and I'm really excited for this conversation. We get to chat with Brandon Lyons, one of our longtime CAF athletes, along with Joe Taormino, who just finished our $1 million challenge bike ride down the coast. He's with CalPrivate Bank, and they are a gold sponsor of the $1 million challenge. First of all, let's start with you, Joe. Doing the bike ride down the coast, and I think we had 120 riders, 27 challenged athletes. What was that experience like for you?
It's been something I've wanted to do since I moved to San Diego in 2009, and finally getting the opportunity. I don't think I knew what I was in for. I didn't really have an expectation. I just knew it was going to be a challenge, and actually getting to do it and see riders like Brandon and there were, like you said, 27 riders. Seeing what they were able to overcome to do the ride, which in itself is a challenge, to go 640 miles down the coast, 100-mile days back to back to back. It was an eye-opening experience, and it just was an inspiring experience.
And did you get to spend some time riding with Brandon?
I did. I rode with Brandon. I remember specifically into Dana Point, and there was probably a group of 10 of us, and I got to see Brandon fly down some hills. And I got to see him go up some hills, and, it's to, do that with your arms. And I don't know how you do it. And the hill into the hotel was probably 15% plus grade.
Yeah.
And he just does it. And it was pretty cool.
So you're a senior VP over at CalPrivate Bank. The connection between CalPrivate Bank and an endurance event, how do you see that connecting?
I think it was more the connection between CalPrivate Bank being a local community bank and a charitable organization within our community. CAF, I mean, they're located in San Diego, but the people all over the world. And I've known about CAFs again since I've moved here. And just having the opportunity to bring my bank, bring my place of work, and get them involved with CAF, I thought it was an amazing connection. It fits our purpose. It fits our motto in our community, and so that was really the goal there.
So Brandon, looking back at your history, growing up in Central Pennsylvania, high school football, baseball, basketball, lacrosse. You did everything growing up. If someone told you back then, hey, you're going to be a Paralympic hopeful when you're in your 20s, you would have been, what the hell? How important was sport for you during that time?
Yeah, it was extremely important. I mean, that was truly my identity growing up. And if someone would have said that, I would have said, A, you're crazy, and then B, what are the Paralympics? Right. I think at that time growing up, there was really no exposure to the Paralympics. I didn't know anyone that, had a disability, and never thought that, maybe I may be one of those people one day. Sport was truly my identity. And again, Joe talked about purpose. That was my purpose, being a young guy, and loved just the overall team sport and really the competitiveness, aspect to it. And, whenever I was hurt then in 2014, I broke my back. I thought that opportunity was then gone. I didn't know what the Paralympics were. I didn't know that there was an opportunity at sports, out there for me at that time when I was in the hospital. So I was very fortunate that, found a hand cycle, got myself engaged. The community, very early on really encouraged me to be active again. And, that was really one of the, I think, pivotal moments early on for me to, fully recover and then, continue to live my life.
So what I love is your work ethic. You got your first job at 15, worked in a grocery store, bought a car at 16, paid your way through your dream school, Penn State, got your degree 2012, go to work at Ernst & Young, supply chain rookie of the year. Then the accident happens. But you dove in the shallow water. Where did that happen?
I was at Ocean City, Maryland. I was down celebrating a friend's birthday for the weekend on Memorial Day weekend in 2014.
And you shattered T5 and T6. And like you said, you didn't have exposure to people with paralysis. What was the lowest moment for you?
I think it was just early on, having to be dependent on people. At that time, I was 24 years old. So when your independence is taken away from you, I was never one that always wanted to, ask for help or, ask for anything of anyone. I didn't want to be a burden to my family as well. At that time, I was living in DC. I had to move back under my parents' home to, go through the rehab and recovery process, and just seeing all of the, accommodations that they had to make. I didn't want to be a burdensome to them. So that was definitely the most challenging part. But I think mentally, once I understood that people are there just to help you, right? That they really just do want to encourage you to, be your best every day. And I saw that in my family, and friends and coworkers along the way. But that biggest piece to get out of that was sport. I remember I was introduced to a hand cycle. Gosh, I mean, when I got out of the hospital, there was one waiting for me in my house already. And that first time of having, that sense of freedom where I put the wheelchair behind. I was just another guy on a different bike. No one knew, what my story was. I was just, out there living an active lifestyle again. That was, such a key moment for me to get through those early dark times.
Trial at UCSD, you meet David Bailey, motocross world champion, paralyzed, comes back, wins the Ironman, has 3 classic races against Navy SEAL Carlos Moleda, who also been paralyzed. And what was cool about the races between those 2 guys at Ironman World Championship, it wasn't about the disability. It was about 2 great athletes who wanted to kick the other guy's butt. That was what it came down to. Because you did a marathon fairly quickly after your injury, right?
Yeah, I did. And I was getting ready to kind of transition from, okay, I was a team athlete, my entire life in team sports. Then I got into, started working at Ernst & Young, and I wanted to get into the endurance side, but again, just very recreational. So I had signed up to run my first marathon in DC in 2014. Unfortunately, the accident occurred. So I thought that opportunity was really just out the window. And fortunately, when I received the hand cycle, quickly found out that there was a hand cycle division within the Marine Corps Marathon. So asked if I could switch my registration over to, the hand cycle division, and was able to go down there and complete it and still be able to, check that opportunity off my bucket list. I always wanted to cross a marathon off early on. So I did that just 4 months after I was injured. And again, that kind of was a, beginning to, okay, there's a competitive, opportunity here. But again, I didn't know what elite athletics looked like from a Paralympic side really until I met David Bailey.
Well, and then 3 years after your injury, I think you were the first hand cycle athlete in the Olympic Training Center to move into the Olympic Training Center, correct?
That's correct. Yeah, from a full-time perspective. And my whole situation really came full circle. I was injured on May 24th, 2014. And the day that I moved into the training center was May 24th, 2017. So it was, a very surreal moment at that time. It was a lot of hard work going into it. But again, I never would have, knew I had this opportunity if it wasn't for David. He was one that, I met him early on when I was riding in San Diego, and he was always having to, slow up for me. And I felt so bad for him, but he was just such a great mentor that continued to push me until I was then faster than him. And, he said, you have a really great opportunity to, do well in this sport if you want to be able to do this, and was telling me about his accolades and really what his journey looked like. And it was just very encouraging and really exciting. So that's really what inspired me to, try to take this to the next level. And I was fortunate enough that the U.S. Paralympic team had reached out for a development opportunity in 2017.
So Joe, when you first moved to San Diego, triathlon, you went to the dark side as well and found endurance sports. And talk a little bit about, because you got into triathlon early on, right? Wildflower and some of those other races in 2011, 2012, that type of era?
Yep. 2011 to 2015, I'd say, was my heyday in racing. And yeah, I actually moved here from Pennsylvania as well. And, I saw all these people in spandex going up and down the coast. And I came from, traditional sports, basketball, baseball.
Yeah.
And I wanted something competitive just to do it. And I was the guy not in spandex, riding a bike in basketball shorts and doing my first couple tri-club events in basketball shorts, running around. And I realized, oh, wow, it's fun. It's competitive. It kind of fills that it gets your competitive juices going and gives me that adrenaline, I guess you're kind of looking for as an athlete, which I feel we all need. Yeah, I started getting into the big classic races around here with Super Frog, and the year Lance Armstrong came here, I remember racing with him, Wildflower, and yeah, that's kind of the backstory.
And when you're doing triathlon, then the family comes along and trying to find time for swim, bike, run, flexibility, weight training, nutrition, not happening, right?
Yeah.
So but you want to keep endurance in there. So that's really where you can spend the time on the bike, and you can train indoors, and you can be a family guy, you can have work, and you can have it all.
Yeah. Peloton's a good thing. 6 a.m. That's kind of what I get. But yeah, even leading into the $1 Million Challenge, I would say, my max riding in a month was probably 100 miles a month. For many years, it was not, I was not riding anymore.
So doing 100 miles a day while you're training 100 miles a month.
Yeah.
How tough was that?
I was definitely a little bit nervous about, what that was going to feel like. Because, you do endurance sports, and it's not until you hit those miles that you don't know what that feeling is yet. You don't know where that wall's coming.
Right.
At some point you get numb. You just do it. So
how important has people, I think, underestimate the power of sport, and the fact that, you're balancing a family and a major job at CalPrivate Bank. And the working out is what gives us our sanity, right? Do you feel that as well? That, okay, without this training for $1 Million Challenge, having a goal, because you're a goal guy, to finish $1 Million Challenge, the working out sort of makes you better at everything else you do.
Absolutely. It's a part of everyday life. People ask me, like, "Oh, what are you training for?" They'll see me out there doing something, and it's life. This is just part of life. I don't need a race to go get on a bike and get a good sweat and have that feeling. And that's really what draws me to CAF, because anybody can be in Brandon's position at any point. No one knows when it's coming.
Yep.
And the more you talk to these guys, the more you realize that we're like one incident, 1 second away from us being in that same position, which is what makes me want to give back to CAF, because what they're doing is amazing.
So when you hear, Brandon talking about, well, I'm going to go, hopefully I'm going to Paris, and I'm going to go, I'm going to LA. And last year I did, 300, close to 350 miles in 24 hours on a hand cycle. You can connect those dots, because you can relate.
Yeah. I mean, like Brandon said, he didn't see himself in 2014, May 1st, 2014. He didn't see that in his future.
No.
But, as another athlete, I'm like, wow, that's awesome. And that's what you want to do. You want some goals, and you want something to live for.
So Brandon, I can't even imagine this. You're in the helicopter after your crash, and you had to call your mom from the helicopter and basically say, I'm paralyzed from the waist down. I can't imagine a parent having to go through that, and you having to go through that. That had to be just so tough for your family to handle.
Yeah, and I'm an only child, right? So I didn't want to hear that and accept it, but I think it was definitely more challenging for my mom at that time than really it was for me. Having to accept it, right? She wasn't there to actually visibly see what was going on, so I don't think she wanted to fully accept it or even understand what was truly happening. It was really that that was the first time that it truly sunk in. Okay, how serious this is. As you're, speaking the words, out loud and, directly to my mom. So, it was a very challenging and difficult time. But it really just showed how critical and how serious the overall event was.
So you were on the national team in 2019, 2020. Is that correct?
Yeah. I've been on since 2018, and then up through this year.
And a couple silver medals, a pair of pans.
Yep.
Very cool. Now, with the goal was obviously 2020, to go to Paralympics, and the year before you were good, and then you had a bunch of infections, just really bad luck when it was time to go to the trials. And if the Paralympics had happened when it was supposed to happen, it looks like you would have been a lot healthier.
Yeah, it's challenging to look back. I can look back at it now and kind of understand the the big picture. But dating up to that, I was living in training at the Colorado Springs Olympic and Paralympic Training Center up through 2020. Then the pandemic had happened. It postponed the games and then also shut down the facility at that time. So that sparked a move for me to move to Florida. And at that time, I was, coming off of a great season in 2019, and then was even stronger. I think I was the fittest I ever have been in 2019. And my overall mindset was, okay, the games are postponed, unfortunate, but I was still new and young in the sport, that I looked at it, optimistically, to say, okay, I have another year. I'm going to get stronger and faster and really improve my chances. And it was starting to trend that way as I moved to Florida early, and throughout the rest of 2020 and early 2021, was performing even better than I was even the previous year. Unfortunately, came down with an infection that turned to early stages of sepsis. Didn't know, went through an entire travel and international competition cycle with this infection brewing in my leg, and then unfortunately my power plummeted, my performance tanked, and got a second opinion whenever I came back from a trip in Europe. And they had told me about, how serious the infection was. Unfortunately, that was in early June. And then the trials for the games was at the end of June. So it was just a quick month turnaround. I wasn't going to pull out because I wanted to see the entire process through. It was the first opportunity I had to be named to a games team. So I wanted to, just learn from that experience and just bank it in to, now get prepared and healthy for 2024.
And in the meantime, since you had some time, you thought, what the hell, I'll go break the 24-hour record. And I'll go out the break.
That was very early on. Yeah. I think I left that unfortunate issue in trials at the end of June. And then I made the decision in July to, okay, I need a new goal.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. The great thing was you had that goal and you went 300. And if someone had told you earlier, you're going to go 343 or 348 miles, you're going to go, wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, I literally, absolutely. When I went there, the goal was I wanted to break the world record, which was, I think officially it was under 410. Later, I find out that was done on a track. I decide to go to Borrego Springs, as you mentioned, that is in the middle of the desert, windy, hilly. The conditions were challenging, but it was honestly, it was an amazing experience to see, that just mental strength to push through it. Learned a lot from the overall experience. First time I had ever done an ultra event. Left immediately saying I'm never going to do this again. And then I gave myself maybe a day to say, okay, there's an opportunity in Florida where it's flat, maybe windy, but flat at least, that I can go after that 410-mile record.
I love it. Well, Joe and I will come out there and help you. I think that'd be a fun thing. So how many times have you done MDC now? $1 Million Challenge?
This was my fourth. Yes, it started back in 2017.
How important has CAF been in your journey?
They've been, instrumental. The overall community that, they've been able to support me along my way with helping me, not only with, training and travel expenses, but overall equipment expenses, right? The equipment, as you start to try to excel in the sport, is so expensive, and it's very limited, right? Not a lot of people have access to, high-end type equipment to really support an overall elite athlete. So, CAF has been instrumental in, not only giving myself, support, but just giving access to sport for, many people, of all ages around the world.
Hey guys, thank you so much for taking time. First of all, Joe, thank you so much for your support. And I'm betting you were nodding your head when Brandon was like, when he finished that thing, finished on Borrego, going, I'll never do this again. You probably had a few days like that during $1 Million Challenge.
No,
so will you be back next year?
I hope so. I'd love to be back.
Love it. Hey, thank you so much for all the support of CalPrivate Bank and for your personal support. That means the world to us.
No problem. My pleasure.
All right. And Brandon, thank you, buddy, for taking time. And 2024 and 2028, those are coming up. There's only the negative about the 5 years of the Olympic cycle last time is you better start learning French now.
Yep, exactly. That's been the mindset. It's just one less year.
Again, this is CAF's Heroes of Sport. My name is Bob Babbitt. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll catch you next time. See ya.